funny the associations we make in life. You may look at a hammock and think to yourself, vacation, or cold Corona with a lime. I look at a hammock and I think rescue net. Because a hammock, much like this one, served as an important part of the most important moment in my life. It was a hot, sticky night in August of 1997. It had been 100+ degrees in Sacramento that day, and that night it had probably cooled off to the mid-90s. And I remember thinking to myself, this is perfect. There will be no relief tonight from this heat wave. There will be no relief from the boiling cauldron, which was my life at this juncture. And I was in a bad place. I was angry, I was bitter, I was dejected, and I was ready to quit. And I wound up in a hammock. I was in my backyard, and I'm staring up at the mighty heavens overhead. And I'm looking at this blanket of shimmering stars. That was the universe, and that was my spirituality. And I remember blurting out the following words. Show me how to turn around this crazy life and I'll share my story with anyone who will listen. I remember at the time thinking, where'd that come from? But I also knew in that moment that something profound had just happened. Now, for you to understand how I wound up there in the hammock making this bargain with the universe, you need to understand a little bit about my life, specifically the component of my life that informed every other aspect of my life. And that is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Quick show of hands, you know what OCD is, right? Okay, well, I need to pull back the curtain a little bit and just give you a glimpse of what it's like to live with OCD. So, a quick little experiment. How many of you in, say, the past 6 months to a year have backed your car out of the driveway, driven a half block away, and thought to yourself, did I close the garage door? Quick show of hands. Okay, those of you who are not raising your hands right now either don't have a car, don't have a garage, or you're lying to me. We might trade out the garage with did I leave on the curling iron or the stove, or did I close a particular window? It's human nature. I've come to find that it's human nature that we all have these what-if questions. Now, I'm guessing that almost to a person, all of you have at some point doubled back to check on something that made you uncomfortable. So if it was the garage door, you doubled back to check that that garage door was closed. Now, the difference between most of you and me is that at my worst, I wondered whether the garage door was closed, drove off, came back and checked, drove off again and wondered, was that my garage door or my neighbor Mary's garage that I just checked? And I would loop back and back and back again. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, obsessions, really disturbing, intrusive what-if thoughts. Now, let me pause there and ask you to indulge me a moment here. Have you ever had a song stuck in your head? An earbug, as they sometimes are called? If you're struggling to come up with one, it's a small world after all. You'll be thanking me in about 2 hours as you're trying to get yourself to sleep. Now, I want you to imagine that little song looping around your head and increase the volume from a little whisper to a shout and replace the words, it's a small world after all, with the most horrific what-if question you can imagine. And now you're going to get just a little taste of what an OCD obsession is. The compulsions are simply, usually ritualistic behaviors that are aimed at removing the uncertainty and the discomfort caused by that obsession. OCD comes in 1,000 flavors. Washers, checkers, orders, repeaters. My particular flavor of OCD was what is known as harm OCD. And at the root of every single obsession I ever had was this disturbing question. What if, through my negligence, I unknowingly harmed or might harm someone or something? It's a pretty common subset of OCD. No real rhyme or reason as to why one of us gets this flavor and somebody else gets another flavor. This was my flavor. And so my obsessions were always about what if I harm somebody or might harm someone, and my compulsions were all about checking to make sure that I hadn't or that I wouldn't harm someone. So how did this play out in my life? Well, the short answer is ironically, because in the early days of my adult onset OCD, I was working at KCBS radio here in the Bay Area as a part-time reporter, and my job was to get to the scene of a breaking news story as quickly as possible and tell our audience what was going on. Now, those of you who know a little bit about OCD or have been paying attention to what I've just shared with you about my own particular challenges can imagine that driving a car, not easy. What a weapon that provided me to do a lot of harm to a lot of people. And so my challenges with OCD in a car would go something like this. I'd be driving down the road and I would run over a pothole and I would immediately think to myself, did I just run somebody over? The obsession, the what if question. So what do you think the compulsion was? Go back and check it, right. So I'd turn the car around and go back and check. And then I'd see that there was a pothole in the road and I'd feel better. And then I'd drive off and my voice of doubt would say, okay, so you saw a pothole, but does that preclude the possibility that there was also a dead body in the road? No. So I'd turn around and go back. I'd see that there wasn't a body in the road. I'd feel better. Drive off again. The doubt bully taps me on the shoulder and says, you didn't check the side of the road. Let me just say it's a really, really good thing that the CHP never saw me going through the bushes along I-80. It's okay, officer. I'm just looking for a body I might have run over. Now, the irony here is that I'm working as a field reporter, driving around a well-marked KCBS We're Everywhere van. No, actually, we're just driving circles around the Embarcadero in San Francisco, checking and rechecking every pothole I ran over. So this became really, really difficult. And I want to fast forward the story because I stumbled my way through the mental health care system. I was misdiagnosed twice, another whole story. But I ultimately stumbled my way into the right diagnosis, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And the treatment for OCD is something called ERP, exposure response prevention therapy. I call it torture therapy. In essence, you are being asked to sit with your very worst fear. Afraid of germs? Okay, let's have you go touch this doorknob that somebody has just touched in public. And response prevention, meaning you are not going to respond to it in the way that your OCD would like you to. Really, really hard work. And one of the hallmarks of OCD is that those of us who battle it are acutely and painfully aware of just how ridiculous our thoughts and our reactions to them are, which tends to lead most of us to clinical depression. So here I am with this incredible double life, very successful radio career early on in life, but at the same time, the biggest challenge being just getting to work every day or getting to the stories every day. And so with the OCD and with the depression, my life was spiraling out of control. And I wound up going through 5 therapists, several medications, every book I could possibly read on trying to get better. And nothing and no one could fix me. Now hear my language there. I'm looking for someone or something to fix me. And that's what led me to the Hammock. So here I am in 1997, and I'm pissed off because it's not fair that I have to deal with this, and it's not fair that no one or nothing can fix me. So here I am in this hammock, ready to make a bargain with the universe. You do this for me, and I will do this for you. And so again, I said to the mighty universe, show me how to turn around this crazy life, and I'll share my story with anyone who will listen. I waited a couple of days. The little instruction book did not come drifting down from the heavens, but something really profound did happen. I turned that bargain on its head, and I said to myself, you know what? I'm a guy who's pretty comfortable in front of a crowd. I'm a guy who's on the radio. I'm a guy who knows how to write and share stories. I am going to share a story about turning my life around from OCD. Only one small problem. I think you know where I'm going. I had no story to share. So what I did, though, without knowing it, without calling it out as such, I identified what I came to call a greater good goal, something that was bigger than me, something that allowed me to be of service to other people and enhance my own sense of power, my own sense of purpose. And so purpose and service, greater good, as I would come to call it later in life. And I decided that I was going to journal for exactly 1 year. And I was going to write everything down on 3x5 cards. What else would you expect from a person with OCD? And of course, I would neatly stack them and organize them. One of many shoeboxes at my house, filled with cards, each filled with journal entries and successes and failures, neatly categorized, please. And I put it all down there for 1 year. I recorded everything, every obsession, every compulsion, every triumph, every setback. And I committed to reading book after book after book that might help me. This one changed my life. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Our greatest motivator is our sense of purpose that we're looking for in life. And I let that lead me as I continued for a year. And so at the end of a year, my life was turned around in a huge way. I wasn't done with OCD. OCD is a biological brain disorder. It's chronic for most of us. But I had learned how to manage it in ways that I never could have imagined. And not just through the journaling. I was doing the hard work of that torture therapy, but I was motivated now when I hadn't been before because I was going to do this so I could share a positive story. So fast forward 9 more years after that of writing and rewriting and re-rewriting, checking and rechecking manuscript after manuscript after manuscript as I continued to put together my overnight success story. But 10 years later, Rewind, Replay, Repeat was published. And I was able to go out and start sharing my story. And the more I shared my story, the stronger I got. And the more I came to realize that we help ourselves by helping others. I became fascinated by that whole process. So what did I do? I wrote another book. And that book was all about what I was finding out there was that it wasn't anything unique to OCD or to Jeff Bell. It was this universal principle that we help ourselves by helping others. And so I started networking with all these amazing people who were finding the same thing I was finding out, who were battling all kinds of adversities. And through a series of just magical moments, I was able to team up with some incredible people, many of whom are here supporting me tonight, and it's so good to see you out there. And we put together a nonprofit, Adversity to Advocacy, A2A. And we put Jeff Bell, guy dealing with OCD, next to Robert Villanueva, a guy dealing with bipolar disorder, next to Corey Reish, a guy fighting the clock because he's got ALS and he's losing his voice, but he wants to be a voice for ALS while he can still speak. A woman who survived a stroke and had to teach herself how to speak again, but she did so she could share her story. All of us wanting to share this notion that we help ourselves by helping others. And so we came together and we built this organization, and we're so excited about the opportunity to share stories like ours and to help other people step into advocacy. And so I want to leave you with this little warning about hammocks and about bargains. Be careful what you bargain for. It just might change the rest of your life. Thank you very much.